I think we're recording, so. Mm. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you caught me again. Hello, it's me, Carol Lee, and tonight on 5 Minutes In, I'm going to spend 5 minutes in Philip Nolen, ladies and gentlemen. Look at him. Philip, I'm glad to see somebody else who just casually sits around the house in their loungewear like you do.
Oh, yes. I'm here in my palatial apartment. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what you can do when you actually clean things during a quarantine. As you can see, I discovered a fireplace over my left shoulder here. Really amazing. And the throw pillows really dress up the joint.
I find that as well. I can't tell you the things that I've found when I started dusting, honestly. I thought I found Tony Perkins for a second, but it turns out it was just
dreamy.
It was just a Yoda doll that I.
That's a shame.
But Philip Nolen, you're an improviser, you're an actor. I dare say you are beloved.
Oh, thank you, Carol. It's lovely to be as worshipped as I am. That's why the quarantine has been such a relief, getting away from my public and just having some me time at last for the last 4 months.
Oh, tell me about it. Finally, somebody that understands me. Now, that brings up my first question. I told my manager, I said, I want to talk to Philip Nolen. And he said, Philip Nolen doesn't do interviews. I said, tell him it's Carol Lee. And the next thing I know, here you are.
I don't answer any phone calls, Carol Lee, but from you, I have to admit, I couldn't resist.
Oh, yeah. If I had a nickel for how many maitre d's have said that to me. Now, I want to jump right in, Philip, because you've had a long, storied career. Now, you, from what I understand, you do a lot of role-playing games.
Yes, that's true. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast, and it's a way to indulge my acting skills off the clock, as it were, in an informal environment. And also, I get the chance to slaughter imaginary people, which is very satisfying, as I'm sure you can understand.
Well, I can understand. I just find it interesting. Like, I do nothing off the clock. So, I mean, if somebody wants me involved, there better be some cash. You know what I mean? Now, my first question for you is for everybody. Philip Nolen, what bit ya?
Well, I made the mistake of doing community theater while I was in high school in the small town of Gadsden, Alabama, which is essentially a racist rest stop on I-59. And I was hooked from the very first play I did. I thought, I'm not really interested in anything else. And this, of course, greatly disappointed my parents, who promptly kicked me out of the house and assured me that I would be receiving no more money from them. So it's been a long road, but I'm happy to say that success has been easy, and I'm now living the life I always dreamed of living.
I always like to say I'm living the life of Charles Nelson Riley. Now, what was that first play? What was the first play?
The first play was a classic called A Man for All Seasons. It's a play about the saint, Sir Thomas More, who was willing to be beheaded rather than deny his Catholic faith under King Henry VIII, who insisted that he was the head of the church in England. So it's quite a dramatic piece. And I played the role of Richard Rich, who was a minor functionary who perjures himself in court in order to condemn Sir Thomas More.
So hilarious, it sounds like.
Oh, laugh a minute. I can't tell you how the audience roared as Sir Thomas More's head was struck off in one fatal blow and then rolled into the basket at the edge of the stage. There wasn't a dry eye in the house.
Wow.
Really, really a crowd pleaser, I can tell you, especially in Gadsden, Alabama in the mid-1980s.
Sure. I can imagine a lot of things were bringing a tear to the eye in the 80s in Alabama. Now, that leads me, thank you for saying that, because that leads me to my next question. Now, I find you delightful.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Ditto, of course, ditto.
Thank you.
You're an utter delight.
But why is it that I never see you? I think you would make a delightful Harold Hill in The Music Man, a delightful Henry Higgins, if you will, in My Fair Lady. I once asked you to play Horace Vandergelder to my Dolly Levi. Do you remember what you said?
I don't. I'm sad to say I don't remember what I said.
You said, I would rather eat a live mouse.
Yes. No, it's all coming back to me now. Well,
so why is it that you don't do shows that people actually want to see? Why is that?
I prefer the obscure corners of our profession.
Mm-hmm.
I like to explore the forgotten niche of entertainment, the things that are not for the mainstream. That's why I did many productions of a nude Gilbert and Sullivan repertoire for a long time, which I'm proud to say sold almost no tickets at all.
Yes. Yeah, well, it gives you a chance to really try new things on the stage. They say every night's a new night. You know, when there's nobody in the audience, what are you going to do?
Exactly. It's complete creative freedom.
That's fun as well. I also did an all-nude version of The Women back when I was working at the Whitley County School for White Women in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, you have pet rats.
Yes, two so-called fancy rats. These are rats that have been domesticated. They're from a breeder who breeds these rats for personality to make sure they're not aggressive or dangerous. And of course, with fancy rats or domesticated rats, there's a much less chance of contracting bubonic plague, which I'm sure you can understand in our present climate is especially reassuring.
Yes. Get a little mask for those rats, because we need Philip Nolen around.
Exactly.
Now, here's a question for you. Kind of building on what you said earlier, where your roots are in Alabama. You did an episode of Roseanne.
True. That was quite a fluke. I was a young actor, kind of wide-eyed, new to the world of show business, and because of a sheer, I guess, stroke of luck, I was cast as an hourly cast member at Walt Disney World, which I also happened to be at the time. Yes, so it was a strange confluence of real life and television coming together at once. I played a guest services host who consults Roseanne about her tendency to litter in the Magic Kingdom. And even though I only had one line, I think it went over very, very well with critics who praised me by not mentioning me at all.
Yes. Now, that builds up to, after Roseanne, you did a movie with Tim Allen.
Yes, it was called Big Trouble, written by Dave somebody. I can't remember his last name.
I love his work.
He's a minor writer. But again, I had exactly one scene, and I'm pleased to report that Tim Allen is just as big an asshole in person as he seems to be on camera.
Well, my question is, from Roseanne to Tim Allen, do you only work with racists? Do you seek that out?
I think it makes me look good. Being from Alabama, I have a lot of racist issues.
Sure.
My mother spoke in terms that I cannot repeat here on a public broadcast. So to get away from all that and present myself as the good cop, as it were, in a bad cop situation, makes me feel better about myself. And I'm sure, as you can understand, especially in the present political climate, performing alongside racists is a really great way to improve your personal reputation.
I find that as well. Philip Nolen, we call it 5 minutes in because, as you know, when you do an audition, we haven't auditioned in years, you and I, but
No.
remember in the old days when we would do an audition,
Oh!
they only ask for a 1 minute comedic monologue. And I have found that that's because that's all you can really stand to be around an actor is about a minute. Oh. Yes. So we've come to this portion of my show where I call it Sophie's Choice. I'm going to give you 2 options. You choose one. I wear these for comedy. I don't need these. They're
very flattering.
Thank you. My first question is, oh shit, I'm going to edit that out. We're going to start that again because, speaking of assholes, you did an episode of From the Earth to the Moon with the wonderful Tom Hanks.
Exactly.
You played nerd number 1.
Nerd number 1, exactly.
How did you audition for that? Did they come to you? Was that an offer only, as we call it in the business?
I'm sad to say no. Unfortunately, there are apparently a lot of nerds living in Orlando, Florida, so the competition was fierce. However, as soon as I brought up Gilbert and Sullivan, I think I put myself way beyond the rest of the crowd who were simply talking about Star Trek and Star Wars, and in one memorable case, Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh my God, I used to dance under that name. Now we've come to that point. No, I want to ask you this. Now, is that what got you nerd number 1? Do you remember who was nerd number 2, nerd number 3?
No, I don't recall who was nerd number 2. He didn't have any lines. Yes, I'm proud to say that nerd number 1 was clearly the driver of that scene.
Yeah, I think that as well. Because if I remember anything from the Earth to the Moon, it is nerd number 1 played by Philip Nolen.
Well, it was a memorable moment.
We've come to the portion of my show where I call it Sophie's Choice, Philip. And I don't need these. These are for comedy. These are not for anything other than just...
You wear them very well.
Aren't you kind? So I'm going to give you 2 choices in Sophie's Choice. You tell me your choice. First one, hairy or smooth?
Smooth.
Not only in people, but also in jazz, I find.
Yes, very true.
Thank you very much. You brought it up, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's an acceptable answer. There is no wrong answer, but Star Trek was the wrong answer. I will tell you that. Now, I know you from what you do. So, Philip Nolen, scripted or improv?
Scripted. Improv is basically an exercise in self-indulgence, and people who enjoy improv are frankly vainglorious blowhards who are very tedious in private company and think it's all about them. So give me actors who would like to know their words in advance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. Hanging out with a group of improvers is just exhausting.
It's the worst.
Oh, heavens. The next one is that I have for you. Gene Wilder in Young Frankenstein or Gene Wilder in See No Evil, Hear No Evil?
Tough call. But I'll have to say that it's got to be Young Frankenstein.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd throw in I didn't think he'd been good since Woman in Red.
No, it's absolutely Young Frankenstein. And it's not really because of what Gene Wilder was doing, but it's because of Mel Brooks's commentary on the DVD, which is easily better than the movie is.
Huh. Well, I'm dear friends with Cloris Leachman, and she's got stories.
I bet.
Let me tell you that. Philip Nolen, you owned a Segway.
I did.
Was that like buying an Edsel? Because I owned an Edsel.
Unfortunately, yes. It was exactly like owning an Edsel. Because as you know, Carol, the Segway is now officially not a thing anymore. It has actually been canceled by the company that bought the company. They decided to make other things instead. The Segway was the great cul-de-sac of nerd technology.
I just leave it to cancel culture to get rid of something like a Segway.
Yes. At least I'll be happier now that I'm no longer having abuse hurled at me as I speed down the sidewalk past pedestrians and joggers.
Sure. With owning a Segway, do you find that after... do you find owning a Segway, when you're done with it, is it like trying to get rid of a VHS tape? No one wants it.
Exactly so. In fact, I think the saddest day of my life was when I took my Segway, which was not only the original model, which the company had not provided support for years, but also completely inactive and unoperable. When I took my original Segway to the bulk trash bin in my condo complex and tossed it onto a pile of old mattresses behind a corrugated steel bin that had been set up for people to throw away anything that the traditional trash takers would not take away. That was a very sad moment. First, they didn't make the batteries. Then I couldn't find the wheels. And finally, because it was the original model, I couldn't find any part whatever, not even refurbished by some avid collector such as myself. So the perils of being an early adopter, Carol, what can I tell you?
And well, it's something about being an innovator, isn't it? Because now it's not even as if, it's not even as if you can find them in a vintage store. Like, this old Schwinn. And that's worth money. Oh, that Segway's over there. No, thank you.
Nope, they're not even collectible at this point.
Oh, maybe someday. You'll think I should have held on to that Segway.
Probably not, Carol. Probably not.
Now, my last question for you is something I always ask everyone. If heaven exists, and I know you're a man of faith, if heaven exists, what is St. Peter going to want to talk to you about before he lets you into heaven?
He's going to say to me, Philip, you were always a man with the best of intentions, a man who desired the best for the world, a man who tried his best to express love and affection and kindness, above all kindness and compassion, to everyone you met. You, Philip, were a man who recognized that we are all part of the human family and all deserving of love, generosity, and kindness. So let's have a talk about the nonstop masturbation over incest videos.
Philip Nolen, I've waited years. Philip Nolen, I've waited years to spend 5 minutes in you. And we've come to the end of Philip Nolen, I've waited years to spend 5 minutes in you. So, your opportunity to now plug me. Where can we find you? What can we look forward to seeing Philip Nolen in coming down the pike, as it were? Plug me, Philip, plug me.
Well, in the future, you'll find me sitting alone in my room, repeatedly washing my hands and wiping down my groceries as they're delivered to my doorstep.
Oh, Philip Nolen, I have found out tonight we have so much less in common than I actually thought we did before we started this.
We really are two different people, Carol Lee.
You are a delight. I don't care what my manager or anyone else says.
Oh, thank you so much.
What a pleasure, Philip Nolen.
This has been a pleasure.
Hasn't it? Perfect. I'm going to stop recording.